in regards to this storm, and I know a lot of people like to get stuff all the time, but I kind of tend to post updates when there's something going on or when there's something changing. So I had an update this morning about the timing, and then obviously a bigger update this evening because we had a lot of changes. And if you're a snow lover, it was good news for you. If you hate snow, then you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed. But as you know how I am, when it comes to upping snow totals, I usually don't just do it without a good reason to, and I'm usually a little more conservative than most media sources for weather. So anyway, let's take a look at what's going on this evening as far as the storm. National Weather Service has a couple of things out. Winter storm warning for the foothills, and this for the Palmer Divide mainly encompasses the western part of Douglas County. So you're looking at Sedalia, points west, up into the foothills of Jefferson County and all the way up into the mountains and foothills beyond that. So the winter storm warning is where they're expecting pretty heavy snow, decent snow accumulations, and probably potentially dangerous driving conditions. So that's one thing to be alert on. And that winter weather advisory for the rest of the areas, and mainly Denver is included in that, Littleton, Parker, Castle Rock. So most of the Palmer Divide, Douglas County, down towards the Springs is included in that, and then Elbert County. Anything above 6,000 feet, they have that outlined in that winter weather advisory. So winter weather advisories are, they're still a warning. So I think a lot of people get the feeling that when they give you a winter weather advisory that it's not going to be as significant. And I think this is one of those storms where, there's still a little bit of uncertainty about how powerful it is and how much snow we get. But a winter weather advisory doesn't necessarily always mean we're issuing it for lots or little bits of snow. It's usually related to travel impacts. So the travel impacts are going to be there, and mainly this thing goes into effect tomorrow at noon. Mainly, I think they're concerned about the icy roads in the morning. There's a lot of model consensus about freezing rain in and out of the area tomorrow with those dropping temperatures. So it's one of those flash freeze events again. And if you've ever driven on one of those, it's basically you're driving along, the road's wet 1 minute, and the next minute it's an ice skating rink. So that's usually what winter weather advisories are more concerned about with that travel. But the winter storm warning is as well. It's just much, much more severe. But they're both winter weather warnings, so to a degree. A lot of folks have been asking about sort of the mountains. Like I said, the winter weather advisory, Denver, Thornton, Brighton, Longmont, Boulder's right on the edge, Keensburg, Fort Collins, Greeley. Good news for you folks in the north. If you missed the snow last time, Fort Collins, Longmont, Greeley, Loveland, those areas will probably see something out of this. And so there's that to look forward to. But if you are traveling up to the mountains, it's going to be messy. Just like the last storm, I see a lot of accidents. I see a lot of people without the proper tires, without chains, stuff like that. A winter storm warning is usually a pretty good bet that the travel is going to get pretty nasty up to the mountains. So a lot of those mountain locations, that winter storm warning starts in the morning tomorrow. So if you have travel planned, understand that there may not be a lot going on in Denver in the morning as far as snow. But as you get up into the mountains and foothills, that is definitely going to be an issue. I guarantee it. They're going to have some pretty hefty snow up there, especially right along the Continental Divide. So one thing I like to throw up here as far as the different winter weather warnings, advisories, et cetera, et cetera. Generally, the National Weather Service will issue a winter storm watch for any three of these. And the watch is just a wait and see. We're concerned. We're keeping an eye on things. But they're all significant in their own way. One is not kind of stronger than the other, except maybe a blizzard warning could be. But generally, if you have a blizzard warning or a winter storm warning, travel is not really recommended. So again, the mountains, winter storm warning, travel is not recommended. I don't see any blizzard conditions out of this. I don't think the winds are going to be strong enough. I don't think it's going to meet the criteria. But the winter weather advisory is there. Travel difficulties along the Front Range are to be expected. So this is a fun graphic to keep in mind, especially during the winter months. But now we'll get to the talking point that everyone's always excited about, the snow. So what you'll notice with this is this is my forecast, and it's kind of a blend of a few different things, but it's gone up since this morning. So no adjustments this morning. The model consensus hadn't really been there. There was still a lot of uncertainty. And then just right before I made this post this evening, we got a huge bump and a lot of consensus in the models. So, I always talk about model bump, and it's when, when they bump up and down, model jumping, bouncing, I call it sometimes, where they'll go up with snow totals, they'll go down, they'll go up, they'll go down. And usually what happens is the shorter range, higher resolution models that are just coming to focus here really well tend to do that a lot. But when you look at what happened this evening, where you got a pretty big jump across the board, kind of the longer range models that are lower resolution went up. The short and midterm ranges all went up. So again, I guess, would you call this a significant storm? It'll be notable, but I don't think it's going to be huge like the March blizzard last year. I don't see that happening. But again, if depending on how long you lived here or what you're used to, your idea of significant snowstorm may be different from mine. I consider something significant that has the possibility to shut the city down, and I don't see that happening with this storm. But it's going to cause some headaches for sure. So this is for the Palmer Divide. You'll notice it's pretty similar to what the National Weather Service has out right now. It might actually be a little bit lower, but there's some caveats. National Weather Service has like Castle Rock at 8 to 12. In a lot of those areas in the Palmer Divide, I'm staying a little bit lower, but there's an asterisk. Some spotty areas could get a bit higher totals than what you see here. I don't think it's going to be a widespread area that gets a foot or plus or whatever, but I do think there are some very specific spots that could see a foot. And if you go west into western Douglas County towards Jefferson County, those areas, there are going to be some spots that will see well over a foot. 15, 20 inches not out of the question on that one. But anyway, for the Palmer Divide, for the most part, most folks will finish in that 5 to 10 inch range along I-25. That includes Parker, that includes Highlands Ranch. Littleton, you get a little bit less up there, 4 to 9. Denver, I've bumped up to 4 to 8. Originally, they're at 3 to 7. I think they could see a little bit higher on that, but we'll just wait and see. And as you get east towards Elbert County and out towards the plains, you'll notice a drop off in snow, just like this past storm where you had a pretty sharp drop off once you went east of I-25. A lot of places in Castle Rock saw 6 to 8.5, 9, 10 inches. Out where I am, and I'm out near Elbert, it was I think we just barely made 4. So big difference there. As far as the rest of the state, or at least the northern central mountains along I-70, areas along that corridor, Avon, Vale, Silverthorne, 5 to 10 inches down and around the cities. I think you'll see more of that on the mountain peaks. So something to keep in mind. The valleys up north towards Kremlin, 1 to 4. Granby, Fraser, Grand Lake will all be kind of at 3 to 7, 2 to 5, 4 to 9. But one thing I want to point out is if you look just south of Fraser there's a 10 to 20 inch total, and that's right along Berthoud Pass. So a lot of these mountain passes are going to see much higher totals. Anything right along the Continental Divide, higher totals. If you look just east of Grand Lake towards, that's probably up near Trail Ridge Road, but that's the part of the Continental Divide that's pretty well up there in elevation. There's a lot of areas that could see 2 feet of snow up there. So again, if you're traveling in the mountains, keep this in mind. It's going to be dicey going west of Denver, but it's going to be really dicey going over the Continental Divide. So again, Berthoud Pass, Eisenhower Tunnel, those areas, probably not going to be a super fun drive. So one last area we're getting a lot of requests for is the areas down towards Colorado Springs. And there's a couple good TV meteorologists that cover that area very well, so I don't talk about it a lot, but I've got enough people asking, so I just throw these up. But Woodland Park, Green Mountain Falls, so those areas kind of west of Colorado Springs are going to do pretty well with this storm. Springs itself, 3 to 7 inches. Wouldn't be surprised to see the lower end of that, but we'll see what the models say again. Callahan, 3 to 7. And then as you go east towards Simla, you're getting down to those lower totals again. So one thing I want to do too, and a lot of people have been asking questions about this, but I kind of want to do a quick walkthrough of what we're seeing now with our forecast, with our data. And I'll just go through Sunday and Monday right now, and I'll touch on Tuesday, Wednesday, because again, there's still a lot of uncertainty with it, but I think it's important to know what is possible with that storm. So we'll get to that. But anyway, for Sunday in the morning, if you're down along the Palmer Divide and in Denver, there's pretty good signals that there's going to be freezing rain here and there. I think the highest chance of that's going to be north of Denver, northeast, kind of along the Cheyenne Ridge, which is that elevated terrain just north towards Fort Collins and going up to Cheyenne. I think those areas are the highest probability of freezing rain, but would not be surprised to see it down in Denver and the Palmer Divide too. So again, the danger with that, it gets on those roads, turns into a glaze, and I don't know about anyone else, but I am fine driving in snow. I don't have a problem with that. But if you've got a half-inch layer of ice underneath there, or no snow and a bunch of ice, it's not a fun time. So I don't think the travel stuff is not going to be a huge deal in the morning, but just be aware if you're out and about, there is the potential for some very icy roads. Not a lot of snow in the morning. If you get into the afternoon, by later in the morning, we will start to see that transition to snow. The snowfall intensity doesn't look all that impressive in the afternoon for Sunday, at least the early parts of it. So you kind of have this transition in the morning from freezing rain into snow in the early afternoon, and then just kind of these off and on spotty snow showers. But I think after you get 3 p.m., 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. and later, that's when you're going to have to start keeping an eye out, because when the heavier snow comes in, it's probably going to pick up very quickly, very suddenly. So if you're out and about, keep that in mind. 3 to 6, somewhere between there, is when we might see things pick up. It might be a little bit later, a little bit earlier. I mean, whatever it is. But by kind of Sunday, late afternoon, evening, it's probably best to be on your way home or getting off the roads. Again, this is not going to be a huge storm where travel's discouraged. It's just going to be kind of a headache. So temperatures are going to get very, very cold tomorrow. The highs are going to be in the 20s for a lot of areas, so very, very chilly. And then overnight, you've got a lot of banding with heavy snow. You've got a lot of decent upslope in there. So I think your heaviest snow is going to be overnight Sunday and into Monday morning. So that's sort of your timeline for Sunday. If we go to Monday, in the morning, heavy snow. I think it'll start kind of wrapping up sometime in the morning, but give or take an hour or two. But I definitely think the commute on Monday morning is going to be tricky for a lot of people. So it's going to be icy. It's going to be cold. There's going to be heavy snow in the hours prior leading up to that. And the road crews can do a lot, but they can't always keep up with heavy snow and extremely cold temperatures. So give it a moderate to high impact on Monday morning. Be prepared for that. Leave early if you have to, or stay at home if you can. But snow will lighten up in the afternoon. You might get some on and off snow showers through the day, and then by evening, some of the models are hinting at maybe some clearing. So you might actually see some pokes of sun through the clouds in Monday evening. And then overnight, and when those skies start to clear out a little bit, it's going to be extremely cold. So think of the clouds like a blanket. They trap the heat in. When they clear out, all that heat that's on the ground and at the surface just radiates back out. So very, very, very cold. I've got a graphic with some temperatures. I'll show you that here in a little bit, but low temperatures around 0 are not out of the question Monday. And by the way, Sunday as well. Sunday's going to be extremely cold, single-digit temperatures for lows. So be ready for that. It's going to be chilly, very, very chilly, almost miserable. So I'm going to brush on the Tuesday, Wednesday storm here real quick. And I know folks are talking and probably have questions, and as always, I'll get to those. But just a quick look at the Tuesday, Wednesday storm. Here's what we know. Based on the modeling we're seeing right now, it has a potential to be a significant storm. Significant as in, if you say a lot of areas along the Palmer Divide, even Castle Rock, those areas included. I don't want to give exact snowfall amounts because it's too early, but some of them are hinting at a foot plus. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. I wouldn't get too excited about it yet. There's a lot of ground to cover. There's a lot of things going on. And models tend to have trouble with these quick succession storms as far as what they're actually going to do. So the time frame for that is sort of your Tuesday afternoon through Wednesday. So again, we're a little bit out. We're going to have to tighten up those time frames. But really, if you're asking when might that hit, right now the best chance of that looks Tuesday afternoon through Wednesday. Those extremely cold temperatures are going to stick around all the way through Thursday, most likely. So yeah, trick-or-treating is going to be kind of cold and miserable this year, but that's how we are right now. So questions we still need to answer. We're going to shore up those time frames a little bit better. We've got a rough idea, but we'll need to get better idea of whether the Tuesday commute will be impacted in the evening or the Wednesday morning or the Wednesday afternoon. The extent of the impacts. So are we going to have air travel issues? Are we going to have commute issues, icy roads, et cetera, et cetera? And then the snowfall amounts. So snowfall amounts are kind of like any forecast I've been giving, that anyone's giving. They're going to kind of go up and down. They're going to be bouncing up and down. As always, I'll kind of give ranges to start out with, and then I'll kind of narrow those ranges down based on the data we're getting in. So that's one thing to look out for. So I want to show you what happened to the models this evening. And like I said, I'm very conservative when it comes to adjusting my snowfall totals up. Yeah, the National Weather Service has had theirs up for a while, but I still was a little bit hesitant. So I don't always say what the National Weather Service does, but sometimes my forecasts line up with them, and sometimes I kind of go with them and see what happens. So anyway, before I show you these, there was a question on Facebook today, and one of the guys that follows along with me answered it pretty well. But I'm just going to throw it up on the screen here because there's a few little things, nuances in models that you have to understand. There's different ratios. So when we look at water equivalent of snow, we can say, okay, if we melt down 1 inch of snow or 10 inches of snow, we get 1 inch of water. That's what we call a 10-to-1 ratio, and that's basically a standard for us. If we know that the storm's not going to be particularly cold or there's not anything else going on, we'll always go with a 10-to-1 ratio. So we can look at precipitation maps and say, okay, we're going to get 0.6 inches of precipitation. That translates to 6 inches of snow. This storm's a little bit different because of the cold air, and we see this more in January, February, late December. The ratio is going to be probably a little bit higher. So you're looking at 1 inch of water might translate to 15 inches of snow. And why that's important is because it can inflate your snowfall totals a little bit more. The snow's drier, it doesn't pack down as much, it kind of sits on top of itself. So that's one thing to keep in mind on. What I did with these models is I tended to kind of compensate for that a little bit. So what you're seeing here is not a true 10-to-1 ratio. It's bumped up a little bit more. So that should be something interesting to look at. First one I have here is the HRRR, we call it. It's the high-res rapid refresh model, and this only goes out to about 18 hours. It goes, I think, up to 33 a couple times a day, but for the most part, it's 18 hours. So it's a very short-term but high-resolution model. And the good part about it is it updates every hour, so we get a good idea of if things are bouncing, if things are consistent. But this is the latest one that I pulled in just before the show. It's probably updated before at this point again. I haven't looked at it, but this one bounced up quite a bit. And you can see it's got the heavy stuff right along the Continental Divide as predicted. It's got decent amounts of snow for Denver, and then of course the Palmer Divide, 8.9 inches for Castle Rock. That's right, kind of in that 5 to 10 inch range, and you can sort of see some banding going through as well. So you kind of got a couple things with the storm. You've got upslope, you've got moisture, you got extremely cold air, you got banding. Usually we get one or two of those at the time, but with this storm we got a ton going on. So it's fun to watch, next model here is the NAM 3K. Let me get that up on the screen here. There we go. NAM 3K is also kind of a shorter range, higher resolution model. This thing has been very conservative on the storm literally for the last day or two. Again, it doesn't go out that far, but it's been ticking up a little bit today, and then this evening's run, bam, it pushed it up. So 7.3, so a little bit less for Denver, a little bit less for the northern front range, but again, notice the patterns in this. A lot of snow in the mountains, a lot of heavy snow west of Denver, and decent amounts of snow for the Palmer Divide. So you can see, if you just take away the numbers and just look at the colors, you can see how they're starting to zero in on certain areas. Palmer Divide's one of them, and then those western foothills are in the other one, and all the way up through the mountains. So you're starting to see some consensus on that, and even with the numbers, you're starting to see that as well. So last one I'll show you is the GFS here. Lower resolution, but goes out a lot further. This one's been bouncing up and down. It wasn't very impressed with it, and now in the last hour or two, couple hours, last run, really it's come on. And if you notice, same patterns that you're seeing on the high-res short-term models. Heavy snow in the mountains. Those purples are close to 2 feet, so along those peaks there, you're getting it. More snow for Denver, decent amount of snow for Palmer Divide, so you can see some of them still are questioning about Denver a little bit. So that's where we're at. The other thing I'm going to point out with this storm is the temperatures. So this is the Euro model, and this is a chart of the high and low temperatures for the next several days, and it's at Centennial Airport. So for Palmer Divide, it's either Centennial or Monument Hill. I tend to go with Centennial because it's a little bit closer to Castle Rock. But as you saw today, just about 70 degrees, so it was actually quite nice. Our low is 59. It was pretty warm. Last night, and your low temperatures usually hit about 4, 5, 6 a.m. that morning, so we were very warm. We had some downsloping winds. Tomorrow, 58 degrees. I think that's going to be high. I think that's probably one of those things where it's a falling high temperature, so you've probably already going to get that around midnight. I think it'll be a lot colder than that, but 23. And then as you go into Monday, 20s, teens, single digits, just cold. Very, very cold for this time of year. So definitely plan on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, we've got potentially another storm coming in with very cold air, so we'll have to watch that for higher snowfall amounts as well. And then Thursday looks pretty chilly for trick-or-treating. So if you're going out, I think a lot of the models I saw teens and 20s and maybe even low teens for like the 6, 7 p.m. time frame. So if you got kids going out, make sure they're bundled up really well. It's going to be chilly. And then you start to see a little bit of rebound on November 1st, but not much. It's still cold. That cold air is sticking around. Now, the interesting thing to know is the GFS warms us up quicker on Thursday and days after. So there's definitely some disagreement between the two models, but there's also disagreement with the storm Tuesday, Wednesday time frame as well. So like I said, as you get further out on these models, they tend to get less accurate. They tend to agree with each other less, and that's why I don't like to give snowfall totals 5 to 7 days in advance, because you just pick a model and it's going to be different from every other one out there. Not very useful. Not very useful. So, other than that, I was going to take a look at the radar. There's really not anything going on right now. We got that cold front. The first wave is moving through. We're going to get a reinforcing shot later tonight into tomorrow morning, and that's where you'll start to see some of that freezing rain. But pretty much statewide, it's looking pretty quiet right now. So this is a live radar from Denver. Just little nightly returns, probably due to air density, but really nothing going on yet. Nothing going on. So except for that cold air, that's moving in. So that's what I got right now as far as the prepared. I try to put a bunch of this stuff together before I do these, but obviously I invite any discussion, I invite any questions, and I'll try to answer them the best I have. If it's kind of a question I haven't looked at something yet, I may have to go look at it, but that's where it is. So let me check Facebook because there's quite a few folks on here. Everyone's saying hi, hello, wherever you may be. I think a lot of folks from the Palmer Divide follow me, but they're starting to get a lot more from Denver and mountains and out east and whatever. So that's pretty cool. The folks that heard me on the radio, yeah. So if you guys listen to Alice 105.9 in the morning, Jamie from the BJ and Jamie show has followed my page for a little bit, and they've started having me on in the mornings here and there. So, you know, I like to say I've got a pretty good track record with weather forecasting, and I can prove that. But man, they like to harass me if I get one storm wrong. I'm sure I'm either going to hear about it or I'll never get called on that show again. So anyway, I really enjoy it. It's a fun time. I hope they keep inviting me back. Questions about Brighton and Parker for, I assume, snowfall. Parker's in that 5 to 10 inch range. Brighton's going to be a little bit less. Let me see if I can pull that up here real quick, because I haven't looked at Brighton too terribly much. So bear with me here for just a second. I'm going to go back to my weather software here. Bear with me. Where are you at? Snow. There you are. Let me load that. It's going to zoom into Palmer Divide. Brighton. Keensburg. I know Brighton's around here somewhere. It's not showing Brighton. You know, and oh, Brighton's out east. Durr. Man, I got to get better with my Colorado geography. You know, I've lived here my entire life, and I still can't figure out where half these towns are out on the eastern plains and stuff. I think there's Brighton. Brighton's kind of in that Denver zone, so I think I had 4 to 9 inches for Denver, if I remember correctly. 4 to 8 inches. So Yeah, I would say Brighton's probably in that 4 to 8 inch range as well. So um, Parker's 5 to 10. Folks traveling Castle Rock, Colorado Springs. Um, if you are traveling from Denver to Colorado Springs, your best shot is going to be in the morning. It probably won't be too bad in the late morning, early afternoon, but if you have to come back, try to get on the road and get back, you know, before 3 to 6. I think your snow is going to start ramping up after that point. As you know, the gap is kind of a mess, so you want to try and avoid that anyway, and the gaps between, Castle Rock and the Springs. So um, if you have travel plans down to the Springs tomorrow, earlier the better, and if you can leave earlier as well too. So. Um, let's see what else we got here. January pattern. Yep. So Sean says this is more of a January pattern than an October pattern. We're not even at Halloween yet. And I mentioned this a little bit last night, but there's a very, very strong storm system up in Alaska that it used to be a typhoon. It's not technically a typhoon anymore. It's more of like an extratropical cyclone, or if you just want to call it in layman's terms, a very, very, very strong low pressure system. And it's kind of kinking up the jet stream, which is sending a lot of this very, very far south into Colorado. So you're getting a lot of low pressure troughs coming down from Canada. You're getting a lot of Arctic air, which, yeah, is very unusual for October. But if you understand the mechanics up in Alaska, there's something up there that's just kicking this stuff down. And man, I mean, you couldn't forecast that, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, a year ago. That's kind of mesoscale stuff that just kind of happens, and there you go. We get the effects of it. So hopefully by November we start to moderate out a little bit. The SPC outlook for us was a warmer and slightly wetter than average for November, December, January timeframe. So we might get back to normal here at some point. I don't see anything super interesting after this week coming up here. Um, Monday morning in Parker, kids at school. Yeah. So a lot of people ask me about school delays, and I touch on this a couple times, but I have no way of telling if school is going to be delayed on Monday. What I will say is, if you have heavy snow and it's not a cold system, that's when you start to see more delays than cancellations. When you have heavy snow and extremely cold temperatures, that's where you start to see more cancellations. So, again, I'm not going to wager a guess at that because I don't know. But I think if things pan out how they're supposed to, you have a decent shot at seeing cancellations Monday morning. We'll see. It's tough because it's not going to be that bad in the afternoon. It's really going to be that Monday morning thing. So it just depends on how the schools want to handle that. But again, I think a lot of them make the call by 4 or 5 in the morning. So um, take take notice of that and just get up early and see if they're there. Um, Odds of power outages with the storm. Um, I don't think it's going to be a huge probability of seeing that just because this snow is it's going to be very white, very light. It's going to be white, but yeah, very light and fluffy. So it's not a heavy, wet snow. But I know there are some trees with some leaves on there, but it's going to be tough to say. I don't see a lot of power outages. I don't see high winds. I don't see blizzard conditions with this. Um, and I don't see heavy, wet snow. So spotty power outages, are they possible? Yeah, but I think for the most part, they're going to be pretty unlikely. So there you go. Burr, very, very cold. Um, Birthday party. So Janine's saying we have a birthday party in Golden tomorrow. 2 at 2. What do you think about Lone Tree up 470 to Golden tomorrow afternoon? Um, I don't think it's going to be too bad in Lone Tree going up 470. I think where you're going to run into problems is the closer you get to the foothills. So they're going to start picking some of the stuff up a little bit earlier than Denver metro area. So if it starts at 2, I would be concerned about getting up there, especially when you're at the foothills. And if you don't have a problem doing that, I would be definitely concerned about coming back later in the evening. It's supposed to hit Denver area, the heavier snow sometime after 3 to 6. And I say after because it could be in that time frame, it could be a little bit later. But the foothills and the mountains are going to see that a lot earlier in the day than we are. So something to keep in mind. Mm, Sean's asking about the typhoon. Um, I've got a terrible memory sometimes, but I remember I was supposed to pull up a graphic for that last night, and I didn't. So the guy who asked about that, I apologize. Um, I'm gonna have to see if I can find that. You might have to bear with me here for a minute. It was on, I think it was on Twitter where I saw that. So if you don't mind looking at my face with a snowfall map behind it here for just a second, I'm gonna see if I can track that down because there's been a lot of questions about that. Um, while I'm doing that too, I'll look at a little bit more questions here. We got a couple about North and Fort Collins, so I will look at that here in just a minute as well. So bear with me. I'm going to try and find this post that had the typhoon thing on there, because it is pretty cool, especially if you're a weather nerd. It's not something you see terribly often. We do get kind of these Bering Strait low pressure systems that can kink some stuff up a little bit. There it is. Let's see if I can pull it up. But not to this extent. This is kind of an unusual, special kind of thing. So let's see if I can get this to. All right. So bear with me a second here. I'm going to go to. I'm going to have to set this up. So hold on just a second. But I did find it. I did find it. So. Oops. Hold on. If you're a weather nerd, you'll love it. I promise. But I need to get it on the screen. So let me find. There it is. Okay. I'm going to try and really, really, really blow this up so you can see it fairly well. And then I'm going to start it in motion here. Okay, here it is. So sorry, that took a minute. But basically what we're seeing here, and this is a look at what's going on in the atmosphere here. This is, it's too small to read, sorry. But it sort of looks like pressure systems. So your oranges and reds are high pressure, your blues and purples are low pressure. But what I want you to notice is up, you can see the continental United States here. You can see up into Canada. This big storm that's up off of kind of that area in the Bering Strait, you'll notice it's putting these huge kinks in the jet stream. So you're seeing these huge high pressure ridges in the orange and red. You're seeing that jet stream, and it's hard to see, but you're starting to see, I'm going to try and zoom in even more. Here we go. There you go. Here's a better view of that. So what you're starting to see here is you've got this huge, huge storm up here, kind of a Bering Strait lows, extratropical cyclone going on up here. And you got a big high pressure ridge here, but look what it's doing to these isobar lines. So these isobar lines are sort of a good representation of what your jet stream's doing right now. But if you notice right here in Colorado, you're getting a big kick down, and look at these blue areas of blue. These are low pressure troughs. They're coming from the Arctic. So you're getting a lot of cold air with them. You've got ridging off to our west, you got ridging off to our east, but that cold air is coming down in the continental United States. I don't know why I can't say that tonight. It's kicking a lot of that cold Arctic air down, and it's also bringing a lot of that moisture kind of up from areas, and it's surprising because usually storms with that track don't have a lot of moisture with them, but we're getting them. We're getting them, so we'll take it. We'll take it. So I'll go back to the snowfall thing here. Yeah, I got to do, give me a second here. I got to do the Fort Collins. Let me look at what Fort Collins is doing here. So yeah, if you guys have questions about whether it's travel or what kind of snow you're looking for in your area or what you're thinking may or may not happen, throw them up on Facebook and I will do my best to answer them. Yeah, it's looking like a lot of these northern areas are going to definitely see some snow out of this, and I'm just pinpointing a few areas here. So you're going to get a specific amount, but let's throw that over there on the screen. Here's what we got for pinpoints. I don't like doing pinpoints, but I'm going to do it in this case. So we'll see how it goes. But the reason I don't like doing pinpoints is I think ranges are better because you can see things in the upper or lower end of the range depending on where you live, what your microclimate's like, whether how close you are to the foothills, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're looking at the northern areas, north of Denver, Fort Collins, throw say 3 to 6 inches on that, maybe more. Call it 3 to 7 on those. Wellington, Timnath, Severance, Windsor, Loveland. I put them all in that area too, 3 to 7 or 4 to 8, somewhere around there. Again, just like the Palmer Divide, just like the South, you've got better snow chances west of I-25 as far as the accumulation. You're going to see snow either way, but your accumulation is going to be higher west of I-25. And then if you look at just east of I-25, look how quickly that drops down. So Nunn, Pierce, all kind of in that 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch range. I would be betting they're going to be a little bit lower than that. So we'll see how it goes. Let's see how it goes on that. Heavy and wet or light and fluffy snow. This is definitely going to be light, fluffy snow, which is why some of the models have struggled with it. I talked about snow, liquid to snow water ratios earlier and how you measure them. Usually we do a 10 to 1, so 1 inch of water equals 10 inches of snow. This one's going to be more like 1 inch of water is 15 inches of snow, or maybe even slightly more, just because that light, fluffy snow doesn't compact as much, doesn't melt as much, and it tends to build up quicker and easier than say, something with its heavy, wet October snowstorm, sort of like the last one we had. We definitely didn't have the cold air support we needed with that last storm. Jeffrey's asking about a concert at the Pepsi Center, 8 to 11 tomorrow night. That's going to be kind of right in the heart of stuff, so I think it's not going to be a pleasant drive home. Is it going to be terrible yet? Depends on your definition of terrible. I think it's going to be definitely tricky. It's going to be a headache. But I think the worst of it just kind of comes throughout that period, overnight Sunday into Monday morning. So your heaviest snow will be in the evening, overnight hours in the morning on Monday. I don't love that time frame as far as the roads. It's probably going to be not fun. So I'll put it that way. Insight on air travel early Monday. It's hard to pinpoint what the airport's going to do because in the grand scheme of things, I mean, they're going to get a decent bit of snow out there, but it's not the worst they've ever seen. We're probably not going to have super high winds. I think if anything, delays are probably pretty likely just because of the icing issues. So there'll probably be de-icing planes. It's going to be extremely cold. There's going to be some decent snow. But definitely check on the news. I had heard, and don't quote me on this, but I had heard some of the airlines were already issuing travel waivers for Monday morning specifically. So, and some of them were even talking about Wednesday and Thursday, or Tuesday, Wednesday storm. So, unfortunately, I don't know what the airport's going to do, but check with your airline to see if they're already issuing waivers, because if they are, it means they're probably going to start canceling stuff for Monday morning. So definitely look into that. Monday commute. Monday commute's going to be pretty awful, I think. If this all pans out, and I always say that because if the storm falls apart, everyone's going to be angry Monday morning, but it can do that. Is it likely at this point? No, but there's always that possibility. But I always like to say, if everything turns out as planned, Monday morning is going to be a pretty miserable commute. It's going to be very, very icy. Temperature is going to be extremely cold, and whether it's snowing or not for the Monday morning commute, you're going to be on the roads after a period of several hours of heavy snowfall potentially. So Monday morning commute looks rough. I think unless this thing falls apart, I'll probably be working from home on Monday. If you have that option, do it. But it's sort of like wake up and see how it looks. If you can watch the news stations, they're really good at covering all sorts of different areas and what the roads are like and what the travel's like and things like that. And I can't do that, unfortunately. I'm in a 9 to 5 job. So um, let's see. Have to go round trip all day Castle Rock to Parker Tuesday. Um, Tuesday is probably not going to be bad in the first half of the day. Um, like I said, there's another storm coming in. We're going to have to tighten up the details on the timing, but Tuesday morning isn't looking terrible. Tuesday afternoon is a question mark. Tuesday evening is a question mark as well. If this thing moves in the afternoon and it's as intense as a lot of the models are saying it's going to be, you want to keep a close eye on Tuesday afternoon and evening because when it moves in, it's probably going to be a headache, definitely. So, all right. Um, Tuesday, yes, a lot of people asking about Tuesday. Tuesday is going to be fine in the morning. I think it'll be, it's not going to be snowing most likely. And if it is, it's going to be light stuff. But I think Monday night into Tuesday clears out relatively well. But that next storm moves in fairly quickly. So you're looking at, okay, things clearing out by Monday evening. You've got another thing coming in by Tuesday afternoon, potentially. Um, it, if that thing arrives a couple hours earlier, you could be looking at, okay, Tuesday doesn't look too well. So um, I haven't talked a whole lot about the Tuesday, Wednesday storm yet, just because there's a lot of uncertainty on it, and we're still, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, still 34-ish days out. So you're starting to get an idea on the models, but all you have is kind of the low resolution, long range stuff at this point. And I say long range, with a grain of salt, but there's still a lot of uncertainty there, and we're kind of waiting to see how that turns out. But what I would say to you is if you want to know what I would do on Tuesday, I would expect something Tuesday later in the day into Wednesday, and I would expect that it could potentially be a bigger storm than this one. And I'm not going to say yes or no or any snow amounts or anything like that, but it has the potential to be bigger than this one. So use that for your planning in the middle of the week. Tuesday, Wednesday, plan for later in the day, Tuesday into Wednesday. Something could happen, and it could be a slightly to significantly bigger storm than this one. So I'm choosing my words carefully because I don't think it's worth getting that excited about yet, but the potential's there. And I love snow, so if we get a ton of snow, I'm okay with that as long as I don't have to bomb around the rural areas of Elbert County again. So let's see here. So Facebook's scrolling down tonight on my chat, which is great because it wasn't doing that last night. I had to scroll, and it was kind of a pain. But sleeping in Monday. Um, So working from home on Monday, I'm hoping so. I still have to get up and at least check it out, and if it's not bad, then I go to work. Um, if not, I do my 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 at home. Yeah, you could sleep in a little bit because you can roll out of bed and get to work right at 9 o'clock if you want, um, or get up earlier and end the day earlier or whatever you want to do. But I think it's possible on Monday. I mean, if it. I think I won't even say it's possible. I think it's likely that a lot of folks are going to wake up Monday morning. They're going to turn the news on. The highways are going to be a mess. It's going to be a wreck. Work from home sounds like a good possibility on Monday. So let's see here. Christy's asks, how's Wednesday? Um, We're still working down the details on that, but I would, if I were you, what I'd recommend right now is pay very, very close attention to the forecast over the next, especially as we get into like late Sunday and then Monday and then kind of towards Tuesday. But the storm looks very interesting, and if it sets up the way the models are thinking it could be very rough traveling on late Tuesday into Wednesday. So I can't give you a whole lot more specifics other than that right now because we just simply don't know. But the advice I will give people about Tuesday and Wednesday, if you have travel plans, is pay very, very close attention to the forecast. Okay? Um, I wouldn't cancel anything right now for Tuesday and Wednesday, but I would definitely pay close attention to the forecast and be prepared to cancel if necessary. But I wouldn't do it right now. It's way too early. Way too early. Um, accumulation in the foothills of Sedalia. Ooh, that'll be a fun one. All right, let me see if I can. All right, I'm still on my software here. Sedalia, so that's right on the edge of that winter storm warning. So let me see if I can bump this here just a little bit, because there we go. Sedalia is down somewhere over here. Sedalia, I think they're solidly within that 5 to 10 inch range, and if you get a little bit further west of there, you probably see more than that. You're talking some of those foothills up there, 6 to 12 is very doable. And I'm just kind of zooming through some of these areas here. My map doesn't really pick all the cities and all the areas that I want, but some of those foothills, you could be pushing 10, 12 inches easily. Um, Castle Rock, I think will be solidly between 5 and 10, with some spots that might be slightly more. But as you kind of go west, you've got pockets of very heavy snow. If you get all the way over here into the mountains, you're looking at 20 inches, and that is, here's Breckenridge and all this stuff. But yeah, Sedalia, 5 to 10 inches with areas that might get more, especially to the west in those foothills. So if you're looking at totals in those foothills, if you wanted to give me a range on wanted me to give you a range on those, I'd say 6 to 12 is doable for a lot of those areas, with maybe some areas slightly higher than that. Just depends on how it pans out. So for sure, that's good stuff. Map for the south. Jamie's asking for the map of the south. How far south? Like Colorado Springs south, or like southern Colorado? Because I've got one set up for Colorado Springs area with ranges. For southern Colorado, I'd have to probably do some pinpoint stuff, which I hate doing. So when I give you these numbers, don't pay huge attention to the exact number. Look more probably at the top towards the range. Let's see. When do you think Cast Rock will get to 2 inches? That's oddly specific. Well, not oddly. It's specific. I'm trying to think through my head with all the data I've seen when it's most likely. I think, assuming we have no more changes to the forecast, timing, intensity, 2 inches is probably going to be sometime in the evening hours. I don't see it happening earlier in the day. I sure don't see it happening in the morning. So the snow is really supposed to start picking up after that 3 to 6 p.m. time frame. So I'd be watching very closely during that time frame to see when it picks up. And when it does, then you'll know to head out if you're in commercial snow removal, et cetera, et cetera. But before like 2 or 3, I don't see a whole lot of snow going on except for light stuff. So again, if that picks up the intensity, you may have to change plans a little bit for that. But with all the data we're seeing right now, a lot of the bigger impacts look later into Sunday evening and overnight hours. So, but I'll be at home tomorrow. It'll be cold and miserable outside. I'll probably be on here doing something, so you can always ping me and ask and see what I'm seeing. But if there's any changes or updates, I usually post them here. What time frame are you discussing? Yeah, so Jamie, I'm talking about the storm that's moving in tomorrow, so Sunday, Monday time frame. That's mainly what I'm looking at with this storm. So as you see, decent snow for a lot of areas. I don't call it a huge storm, but again, my definition may vary from yours. But decent sized storm out of this one. A lot of folks going to bed. I know it's getting kind of late, so if you are going to bed, good night. Thanks for tuning in, putting up with me. Um, Woodland Park, Teller County. So Casey asked about Woodland Park, Teller County, which I had on a little bit earlier. You guys are going to do pretty well on snow. Let me see. I pull up Colorado Springs here. Woodland Park's going to be kind of in that 6 to 12 inch range. Wouldn't be surprised to see a few spots bump a little bit north of that, but this is generally kind of the Colorado Springs area that I'm thinking as far as the ranges. So, less in the city, less along I-25, that gradient goes east. So as you move east, you'll see less snow, but the gradient, bumps up as you get into the foothills. So those woodland park areas, Green Mountain Falls, all those foothill areas west of Colorado Springs and up towards the mountains, 6 to 12 or 5 to 10. Wouldn't be surprised to see the higher ends of those ranges for a lot of places, and then, like I said, a few spaces may go above a foot. So definitely going to be fun up there. All right. Vanessa says Castle Rock 12 to 18 inches. No, no. That's a little bit up there. Here's my forecast for kind of the Palmer Divide, including Castle Rock. So, um, 12 to 18. Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I think in a lot of cases, Castle Rock will struggle to get above that 10 inches. I think with a lot of the data I've seen, the reason I like the 5 to 10 and National Weather Service too is a lot of the models have it right in that area, 7 to 8 inches. So if you wanted me to pinpoint Castle Rock, again, depends on the area, depends on your topography, but that 7 to 8 inches is really kind of the sweet spot with the models right now. So 5 to 10 is a good range. You could see areas with slightly less, areas with slightly more. So yeah, no, this won't be a 12 to 18-inch storm for Castle Rock, so no worries on that. Like I said, I don't want to talk too much about the next storm, but just keep a very close eye on it. That's all I'll say. I don't want to start throwing stuff out there when we've got not enough data. All right. Okay. So if you guys have any other questions, or if you just want to talk about anything in general, weather related or anything like that, let me know. Um, if not, I'll probably sign off here in just a minute or two. Um, Again, thanks you to everyone who's been following on Facebook and on the website. I know it crashed tonight. I've been able to kind of push that to a backup site or a backup server, which is actually my small business server. And it seemed to do pretty well, but not sure why it crashed. I'm going to look into that. I need to move it off that server and get on a new one, so it might not be able to handle everything. Um, so there's a good question. How long have I been tracking weather? So this will be a little bit off topic as far as the forecast, but I can talk about weather all night. So um, there's that. I got into weather when I was about, I want to say 5 or 6 years old. I used to live up in what is now Centennial, right by Quebec and C470. And if you've been around that long, you know there was a pretty significant severe weather event. I believe it was in 1993, 92, somewhere around there. Um, and there were several, large hail events. There was a tornado that touched down. Well, that went right by our house. So I know everyone in my family was hiding in the basement, and I kept wanting to go up and look out the window and see it. And I think when you talk to a lot of people into weather, they all have that one event in their childhood that really got them into weather. So after that, it was, I love to read. I begged my parents for every weather book I could get. I would sit out in my backyard with a notebook and I'd take notes on the temperature and the dew point and what the winds were doing and what types of clouds, and kind of made it a pattern recognition thing. So, and a lot of what weather is pattern recognition. So if you're good at pattern recognition, you can figure it out. But as you know, Colorado likes to buck those patterns quite a bit. So um, as I got older, high school, I took more kind of science classes. I got behind it, went to college, did some storm chasing, did some undergrad classes there. And then ever since then, I've been storm chasing every spring and forecasting weather. And growing up in Colorado, it's nice because it's one of the trickier places to forecast, but I like it that way because it keeps you on your toes. So as often as I like to be right on forecasts, there's every once in a while where we just get completely blindsided. And I say we because it's me and TV meteorologists and National Weather Service, and I hope it's not this storm, but it does happen every once in a while that, something falls apart, something happens. Um, but in Colorado, it's unpredictable. In other places, it's a little more predictable, but weather itself is unpredictable. So, um, yeah, a lot of folks asking about the next storm. Like I said, my biggest recommendation with the next storm is just keep an eye on the forecast. I don't want to start spitting stuff out because it's probably going to be wrong. and it'll be wrong as early as tomorrow or the next time we get models in or whatever. We're still seeing a lot of bounce back and forth. Um, but like I said, with that storm, just keep a close eye on the forecast the next couple days. If it's starting to look like something you need to worry about, obviously I'll let you know. I think the big blizzard in March, it was pretty good. I think I had a good 4-day lead time on that. So, but every storm's different. I don't have a good 4-day lead time on this one. We're gonna have to get more data and get more forecasts and stuff in. So, um, anyway, Kiowa. Kiowa's kind of gonna be that 4 to 9 inch range, but as you get further east, these things are gonna drop off. So 4 to 9 may be a little bit much for Kiowa unless it hits the lower end of that range. I'd give Kiowa a 3 to 7 inch range for snowfall from Cheryl there. So anyway, okay. Looks like I'm just about out of questions. So again, thank you guys. I'll probably wrap up here, but thank you for everyone's following along and putting up with my weather stuff. And yeah, I enjoy forecasting the weather. It's something I love doing, so I'll continue doing it until I'm tired of it or anything else. But thank you guys for following along. And if you have any other questions or whatever, always feel free to ping me on Facebook. When my weather website's back up, you can always leave comments and questions on there, and I read a lot of the stuff. So that's usually like when I do these live streams, I'm usually answering questions I read earlier in the day too. So about the snowfall ratio, the liquid ratio, and some about the weather watches and warnings for winter. So anyway, thank you again. I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. I might do another one of these tomorrow, depending on the situation, if need be. But otherwise, have a good rest of your night. And I will be posting this up probably on YouTube again. So if you haven't followed my YouTube channel, that's where it's going to go. And that's sort of going to be my archive for a lot of stuff. But I got some other content I'm going to be working on at some point as well. So anyway, thank you guys again. And everybody have a wonderful night. Take care.